Hello, CSFL. Welcome back. It is the CSFL podcast. As ever, you've got myself, Coach Fury, on the channel. And today we are going to be going through the draft lottery for the 2013 draft in the league. Of course, I'm not going to be doing this on my own. I am joined by two guests, as you can probably see on the screen. The first one you've probably come across many times. He is a veteran of the CSFL podcast and a CSFL champion. I know I have to say that every time I introduce him now. But Josh, it's great to have you back on. Not much of a vested interest in this draft, but I guess you're just a keen observer.
Sorry, KW. I did everything, humanly possible to not have to give him a lotto pick. And I actually had that written into my contract for this season of the podcast that he has to say that. So, way to go, Cleesby.
Yeah, I have to. I've been told. Same as when Rizzo comes on, I have to call him the commissioner and our leader. It's in the contract, unfortunately, for the podcast. Okay, great. So we've got yourself on. Good to have you back. And we're also joined by a new guest, a first timer on the CSFL podcast, but a bit of a Draft Day Sports Pro Football veteran by the sounds of it. He's in several leagues, from what I understand. We have the Buffalo Bills GM Toasty. Toasty, it's great to have you on. You've had a tough gig. You've probably had the hardest GM job in the CSFL since you've joined. How have you been finding it, and how do you feel the season's gone for you?
It has been certainly difficult, but I feel like this season was kind of a letdown because I went into the season with high hopes surrounding Tebow and them. But after reevaluating my team, I think 4 wins was great for the team.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was certainly. I mean, I know Josh would probably agree with me on this one. It was probably the hardest challenge in the league, outside of probably the Oakland Raiders now, in the league. It was on the chat actually today. I think it was Stoneface described it perfectly well when he said, the Oakland Raiders at the moment, and similar to the Bills when you took over, is probably like if you were trying to play Madden online on Hall of Fame difficulty. Just the sheer lack of quality in the roster, the tough situation with the draft picks. But it's looking up. He's definitely improved from last season. And I guess Toasty, you might have your little eye on this draft as well to try and add some talent over the off season.
I really don't have much capital in this draft because I traded a lot of it last season for capital in it. But I definitely have 2 or 3 picks that I know who I would personally want to take.
Yeah, it's really interesting, looking at the chat the other day, some of the stuff that Chris has pioneered with the training, with the situation that the Bills are going into next season. I think that I would kind of do what the Panthers did and just try to see if you can internally build for 16 games, just pump up all of your ratings in addition to, adding some youth to the squad.
I have actually been doing that for a good chunk of the season. But when I hired my coaches last season, I didn't put much value into the development of them, and that hurt. So this off season, when I fire all my coaches, I'm going to definitely be looking at the development.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I completely agree, and it's a really interesting point. In terms of training and how it's being approached by different teams, it has certainly made myself and the Lions think about our roster construction and how we might use the training as best we can with some of the guys who are necessarily not playing regularly each week. So certainly an interesting thought and perspective. But we're obviously here to talk about the draft lottery. That's the purpose. That's why everyone is kind of watching in and going to be watching with either with excitement or with worry. But we've kind of changed the approach this year. So for those of you who have followed the CSFL Draft Lottery, every year we always do it live on a podcast like this. You'll have seen previous seasons, myself, Josh, Kairos from last year, just whacking in numbers on a lottery form on Excel to try and get the picks down. For those of you know, the top 20 picks in the draft, we go into a lottery, and every one of those 20 picks has a chance of being the number one overall pick, whether it's 1% odds or 10, 12%. But we've changed it slightly this year, thanks to the Broncos GM. Thanks to the Broncos GM Noah, and then probably thanks to some of the crazy antics that went on last year with some of the teams slipping around. So we've obviously added in for GM voting a lock so that teams cannot drop more than 5 places from their original position. So we're going to see that in action as well. But it does mean that we're obviously not going to be entering in random numbers, and I'm not going to be asking either of you for numbers this year. We literally have a script, thankfully, which will save us a lot of time as we get to the end and we have to try and find that one number to fit that one team. Josh will know the pain of that from the first season. So
it was exciting.
I don't know if it was exciting or frustrating at the end. I'm not too sure. But obviously this year it's slightly different. We got a script of code, and up the top here you can obviously see the number of wins assigned to each team. There's the 20 teams, and the way it works is we simply enter it. It shows the odds for the teams who are left to get that selection, and then we simply enter it again, and it will draft a number and tell us who the team is. So that's how it's going to work. I've got 2 great GMs to give feedback as we begin, but before we start, let's run this. And let's have a look at the odds. So unfortunately, it's a little bit of a long script, but as you could probably see, as we sort of slide sort of left here, you could probably see that the New England Patriots have the 8% odds, Washington 8%, Tampa Bay 8%, and so on. I guess both of you guys, how annoyed are you that New England still has one of the best odds of probably landing the number 1 pick this year?
I wouldn't say annoyed because, I mean, gamesmanship, well done. Like, moving Brady for those picks. I think I said in the forum, it's going to go down as like probably the most hindsight lopsided trade in league history. But at the same time, like, you traded Tom Brady, so it wasn't like you didn't trade, a great player. I think I'm mostly annoyed because that roster was very strong when he got it, and he's basically adding the same quality of players right back to it as they, fall right off.
Yeah, and I guess and Toasty, I mean, obviously, I think you may have obviously joined when after this trade happened. I mean, what were your thoughts? I mean, is it just a case of New England are always good? It doesn't matter if it's sim league or real life; they always seem to get a trade that just works for them.
It sucks, really, because facing the amount of talent that he has 2 times a season, it is hard to get an edge on a team that has no weaknesses.
It's true, man. The AFC is no joke. I mean, you have the Patriots and the Jets in your division, and in my division, with the Texans have a GM, they were a 12, almost a 10 to 11 win team, somewhere around there. So, along with the Jaguars who won our division this year. So,
yeah, it's absolutely, it's tough, and it must be really frustrating if you are in the same division like Toast, you are with the Bills, and seeing New England, who've just managed to get Russell Wilson as a rookie, possibly getting the number 1 pick again. We'll see. I mean, looking across to other teams, I mean, for me, I don't know about you guys, but the teams that I feel really need the number 1 pick this year are probably the ones that sit below that. So you've got probably Tampa Bay, the Rams, the Redskins, and then probably the Bengals, all sitting in this sort of remaining pack, I guess. Some with better odds, some with slightly worse odds. But they're teams that I feel are just really could do with a number 1 pick just to bring that elite talent to their roster. What do you guys think? Do you think that they're the ones that are sort of mostly looking out to this draft as sort of the talent upgrades?
Yeah, I mean, I would love for the Rams to get the pick because, I mean, that'd be great for getting us a GM in there. Tampa Bay would be another one, Cincinnati and the Chargers. are other teams that I'm kind of hoping leap up, and the Dolphins as well. The other ones I kind of, I feel like those rosters are, just are pretty strong. Like you don't need another pick, but if you get it, it is what it is. The Patriots don't need another one. I think the Redskins are significantly better than they were this year. I personally think that this pick was their goal. So, I would rather a team, gets it that could make the team more competitive, the league more competitive overall.
I am going to have to agree with Josh. The Redskins had a really good team, and I don't know what happened because 2 seasons ago they were in the playoffs, and this season they fell off majorly.
Yeah, I can't say I watched the Redskins that much this year. I think I maybe played them possibly once. They weren't really on my radar as teams to kind of keep an eye on. So I'm not too sure what's happened there. I mean they've had a GM who's been active the whole year, and obviously he made some trades in the offseason, but I'm not sure whether it's just a case of the game plan strategy didn't work or what. But they're in there. They're in the hunt. They've got the second best odds, well, joint best odds for landing that number 1 pick. I guess other interesting things in this draft. I mean, if we go down towards the bottom of the odds, you've got some interesting teams in here that if they were to land the number 1 pick, could possibly transition them from being a team that's just muddling just below the playoffs to probably a borderline divisional winner, really, or probably competing for titles. I mean, teams I look at are probably the Steelers. You've got the Eagles in there. You've got Indianapolis, who obviously have got Manning at the moment, but an interesting decision there if they do land the number 1 pick. So, yeah. I mean, you've also got the Browns. I mean, the Browns have got 2.7% chance, and they've had a difficult season this year. So, yeah. I mean, there's some interesting ones, isn't there?
Yeah, no, I think that, and again, teams that I think could become like almost immediate contenders if they play their cards right. I just talked about them, the Redskins. I think that that when I took a look at that roster before we did this, because I wanted to look at each one of the teams, and I, like you, hadn't paid a lot of attention this year, but when I looked at the roster, I was just like, that team has a really strong player at almost every single position. So, that kind of just surprised me to be a 1-win team. Another one would be, as you said, the Lions. You guys, get a top pick. You're going to plug whatever you think your most obvious hole on the team is with a potentially, top 10, top 5, talent in the league. So that's frightening for the Saints. Lucky I'm on the other side, don't have to worry about that. But on that note, Pittsburgh or the Browns, if either one of them get a top pick, that definitely directly impacts the balance of power in what's already a tight AFC. So it's going to be, I'm looking forward to this lottery. This one's actually going to play out a lot differently, I think, than the last one, as far as seeing, because, we're 3 seasons in, so we kind of have an idea of like what our I guess our usual suspects are.
Two teams I'm looking at, if they jump up quite far, is Seattle and San Francisco. If they can get a high pick, I feel like they'd be instantly contenders next season.
Yeah, I completely agree. I can certainly see that. San Francisco, actually, I mean, really surprised me this year. I thought that they would be a 2-14, 3-13 team. But I mean, to be fair, I mean, Dylan has worked really hard on that that strategy and that playbook, which has certainly paid dividends, because when you look at some of the talent on that team, he is maximising it to its absolute extreme. So, yeah, I can certainly agree with that. If they add, a certain Mr. Luck who we know is in this draft, that could be a really interesting team.
I think you're sleeping on Kaepernick. I think that I don't see anything wrong with them going forward with him. If I got that pick, I would. They don't have a ton of I think the last time I looked at them, they don't have a ton of offensive talent. They might take the best skill position player in the whole draft.
Possibly,
other than outside of Luck, or heck, trade down and collect even more picks.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I can certainly see this first round there being a lot of transactions between some of these teams. Where if things fall a bit interesting, I think this could be the most active draft we've seen in terms of transactions.
I completely agree with that.
Okay, shall we see who the number one pick is?
Yeah.
All right. Before we do this, I'm going to ask you both. Let's see if anyone's got any Mystic Meg powers. Right. Let's see. Right. So, which team do you think is going to be the number one pick? We'll start with Toasty, and then I'll ask you, Josh, and then I'll throw my name in the hat, and then we'll see if anyone actually does get it right.
I'm going with Tampa Bay.
Minnesota.
Tampa Bay, Minnesota. I am going to go with Cincinnati. Okay. Tampa Bay, Minnesota, Cincinnati. Is any of us on this podcast going to be right? No.
Nope.
Nope.
Oh.
This is the second year in a row. Seriously.
Yeah. Well, we already know who he's going to take. He's going to take the best defensive player in the draft because that offense is loaded. So.
Yeah. Well, I guess congratulations to New England.
Yep.
I don't know about you. I'm deflated now. I really wanted one of these teams who needed that first round pick to get it. But no, New England have got it. They obviously, as part of the Tom Brady trade, managed to acquire this pick. I guess the question I'll ask both of you really is obviously New England have got Russell Wilson. We know that. So do we think this is a case where this first number one pick is probably up for trade now?
I would trade down. Like this personally, I would trade down.
I feel like Rizzo.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was talking to you, Cliz. I was talking to you today, Clisby, and I said, if Rizzo does get this pick, I feel strongly that he's going to trade it down and get as much capital as he can. Yeah,
you did. Yeah, no, it's very true. You did, and I agree with both of you. I think he'll trade this. If we go just quickly jump in, not that one. Let's jump into here. So one of the interesting things is that the Patriots, a lot of their offensive line are out of contract this year. When I was looking at the salaries, so I can certainly see him taking some capital in this draft, some capital in maybe the next couple of drafts, to certainly clear some of that, solve some of those issues in terms of contracts that he's going to have. So I mean, if I just some names, I mean, he's got Will Falk, Light, Goyton, Volmer, Mankins, all out of contract. Oh, sorry, all out of contract. Goyton, isn't. So there are going to be some gaps in that New England offense, unless he does something during the off season.
I would do something similar, like just a higher quality version of what I attempted, last off season. Get yourself about 10 really good picks, and you basically have the core of a team for the next 3 or 4 seasons that you can work with, and then you can go into free agency and just shop. And I just Rizzo's a smart guy. He obviously pulled the plug on Brady at the right time, and that's worked out well for 2 seasons in a row now. So I think he'll make the right move.
Okay. Should we have a look at the second pick? I believe if I press enter, we'll get the odds to come up straight away. If it doesn't, we might dive straight into the second pick here. Hopefully my enter button works properly and we just get odds. Okay, cool. So it has worked. So obviously the big player, New England, has gone. So it means Washington now have the 9% chance. All the other ones kind of stack up a little bit. But yeah, it's pretty much same odds as before, just everyone's sort of gone up a little bit because no one has dropped. So should we try again? None of us got the first round pick and the number one pick in the first round. Who do you guys think is going to be number 2?
I'm just going to say that I think this is the first pick we see movement.
Okay, you're sitting on the fence. I need a team. Come on.
Tampa Bay again.
Tampa Bay and Toasty. What are you going for?
Denver.
Okay, Denver jumping up. I am going to stay with Cincinnati. I just feel that they're going to jump. I don't know why. I feel they're going to jump. So let's see who's going to have the number 2 pick in the next draft. Houston. Okay. Wow. Okay, that's a big jump. So Houston had the 5.9% chance of landing number 2. They have jumped up. They are GM-less, I think, at the moment.
Yep.
That's certainly going to help their chances probably in recruiting a GM. 5 and 11 teams grabbing the number 2 pick for this year.
And, not a bad roster at all. And, Arian Foster is a bad boy. So that's really going to help out.
Yeah, and I think they started pretty well actually this year, didn't they? Oh no, sorry, they didn't start very well, and then they sort of melded towards from week 6. So yeah, okay, Houston have jumped up. It just shows though, if you are outside the playoffs, there's always a chance you could jump up in this draft system. So congratulations to Houston. You have no GM, so I don't think we need to talk about you anymore. Let's move on to see what the next odds are. Okay, so clearly Houston jumping has cleared a bit of a percentage gap there for the top guys. Between Washington, Tampa Bay, and the Rams and Denver, we've got, about a 33% chance that one of those top 4 are going to grab this one. What are you guys saying for this one?
I think this is where Washington's going to fall.
I'm going to say Detroit.
I'm going to say Detroit. I'm actually going to go with Tampa Bay on this one. I think Tampa Bay are going to nick this one. So none of us have been right so far. Pick number 3 in the 2013 CSFL draft is going to be Washington. Okay, so Washington have dropped 1 place. They were obviously scheduled to they were joint number 1 odds, but they number 2 by definition. So Washington with the number 3 pick. I guess interesting. Obviously 1 and 15 this year. Josh, you obviously talked about there being talent all over the place. I mean, it's quite a short roster though in terms of size. Yeah. Number 3 pick, they're probably not going to be able to land Mr. Luck now. What do you see them doing with this now?
I go best player available. I really don't understand why they played McElroy at quarterback. I haven't delved into every single game to see if that was the entire season, but it kind of looks that way based off his stats. So I just think that just some simple changes would probably have made their season go a little bit differently than playing a rookie in that conference. But maybe they just made the determination that the Saints and the Packers and the Lions were just too good, and if you're not gonna win the Super Bowl, then why be in the middle of the pack? So hopefully this will make them want to be more competitive.
Yeah, and Toasty, what's your view on the Redskins? 1 and 15 now with the number 3 pick in the draft. You've obviously been in a tough situation with the Bills since you joined. But probably Redskins are probably a little bit more talented than the Bills were. Well, certainly are more talented than the Bills were when you took them over. Is it one where you would probably hold the pick, or would you probably look to deal down or try and deal for some more assets if you're the Redskins?
If I were the Redskins GM, I would trade this down for a pick in the 15 to 20 range and get as much draft capital as possible, because like I said earlier, they have a solid team and there isn't really one spot that I feel like they need a elite player because they have solid players everywhere.
Yeah, there was a lot of people saying the draft last season was weak, but I mean, like I found borderline starters in the 5th, 6th, and 7th round. So that actually could be a really good strategy, Toasty.
Yeah. So interesting. Obviously, it's depth is what we're saying. The Redskins maybe need. It's not talent, it's depth. Yeah. Okay. So let's go to pick 4. None of us have been right so far.
I just said Washington.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah.
Josh, you're up. You're up. You got 1. Me and Toasty have got 0. So pick 4. Obviously now another big player is out, so now these odds are becoming a little bit shorter for some of these middle guys, which is obviously Denver, the Rams, Tampa Bay, Detroit, Cincinnati, all sort of sitting there around the 8%, 10% mark. Where do you guys see pick number 4 going?
Tampa Bay.
The Rams.
And the Rams. Okay, so you're both going with the top 2. I think this one, I've said them twice. I'm going to say them again. Cincinnati, I think, are going to have pick number 4. So let's have a look. Who is going to have the 4th pick in the 2013 draft? And it is Indianapolis. Indianapolis have jumped up massively. Wow. A team, I guess, that had high hopes going into the season of being a playoff team, missed out in a tough division. They ended up 8-8, kind of similar to what we said at the beginning of the season. They would be a great offensive team and probably a terrible defensive team, and they kind of lived up to that. Toasty, I mean, the Indianapolis top 4, do you think that they're going to try and just get defensive help there?
Yeah, I do believe that they'll get defensive help because it's their big glaring hole that they have.
Yeah, I think so. I think that Indianapolis will hold this pick and we'll probably try and get one of the better defensive linemen in. Josh, I mean, what do you think? I mean, they've got Laurinaitis who's expiring, I believe, if I remember. If they've got to try and sort out that contract situation at some point, maybe before the draft if they can. But for me, I see that that sort of cornerback positions being a bit of an issue for them, and it kind of looks like it's going to persist at the moment unless they do get some talent in this draft.
Yeah, I think I said I thought one of their really big deficiencies was they just didn't have any just extremely good playmakers on defense, and that kind of came to fruition over the course of the season. I think that, I mean, to be quite frank, defense can kind of be, I guess, what I'm trying to say is specialized, and I don't really think that they necessarily have to use a top pick on defense. I think that maybe if they kind of, like Toasty said with the last team, drop down into the 20s and pick up a bunch of picks and scout really well, they can kind of plug every hole in their defense in one draft while they still have Manning if they want to kind of compete in that window, because they're not going to get, luck's not falling this far down. So, if they want to still
chance.
If they still want to compete
this far.
Yeah, they still want to compete in the world where Peyton Manning's their quarterback, then, kind of do what, the Colts never did for him in real life and, flesh out the rest of the roster. Which I think that their GM's a really, really good GM. He took the Utah in our college league and has them, basically undefeated right now. So, I think he'll eventually, figure out how to get Indiana turned around.
Yeah. No, completely agree. Okay, so let's move on to pick number 5. Here's the odds. So Tampa Bay's now at 10%. Rams, Denver, Detroit, Cincinnati and the LA Chargers are all around 8%. And then we've kind of got the middle pack sitting at 7 and 6% now. So where do you guys see this one going?
I'm gonna still go with Tampa Bay. I feel like they deserve a top pick, and so I'm hoping that they fall in the top 10 and they haven't dropped that far.
My bet would be the Broncos.
Okay. I'm going to probably say that I think this one is going to end up with Tampa Bay as well. I think, as I hope it ends up with Tampa Bay because they deserve a top 5 pick. They've had some difficulties in the draft, dropping a past couple of seasons. So let's see. So pick number 5 in the 2013 CSFL draft is going to Seattle.
Oh, okay. Man.
Wow. This is certainly shaking up the draft now. I believe now Tampa Bay, I don't think can drop much further. Were they pegged as the 3rd pick?
So yeah, They were pegged as the third, so they can't drop another spot. No, and they can another two spots?
Yeah, another 2 spots. Okay, so they've got 2 more spots, but Seattle jumped up, which is an interesting one because I've really talked about Seattle quite a lot this season. As you guys probably seen in the chat, I think that the GM there, I believe it's Casey, has done a fantastic job.
Yeah.
They were a team that were just middling down the bottom. Really needed someone who actually understood the game to get in and improve them, and he certainly has. To just give you a sense of it, I mean, that was the end of their season. When he kind of got hold of the reins, I think pretty much then, and they managed to pull them back to 8-8. So
go pull up their quarterback. Go pull up their rookie quarterback real quick because I want everyone to see this guy's like Enderly or something like that. Yeah. He Casey went on a winning streak with this guy as his quarterback when Whitehurst went out. Like he figured it out. Like he's the equivalent of my Jake Locker. You know.
Yeah, I mean, arm 72, accuracy 80, intelligence 78. But that's how he performed.
Yeah.
How on earth do you get a quarterback to perform like that? I mean, Toasty, you've got a similar thing. I mean, you've got a guy that people either love or hate in Tim Tebow. And you've managed to get a bit of performance out of him this year in terms of using his strengths as best you can. Do you think this is a similar case with Seattle? They're just getting the best out of Enderley and just, accepted that he might be a better fit for the strategy than Whitehurst was?
It is tough to tell, but I feel like they changed their game plan to play to their strengths, and that really helped them.
Yeah, I think so. I'm just going to quickly grab Whitehurst's stats as well. Nowhere near as good a performance from him in these 11 games. He's probably his best season was when I think it was Gilbert, the GM, was in charge there, and he was a bit of a GM veteran. So, just I guess maybe the writing's on the wall for Whitehurst in Seattle, and then Enderley is the answer. But they've jumped up to pick 5. Probably not going to get Andrew Luck, as we've said. But I mean, other quarterbacks that will be of interest, probably for this position, is probably Terrell Pryor. Is probably the one that I would say is worth a look if Dylan's write-ups are anything to go by. Probably a little bit of an upgrade over Enderley. Might be an option there. I don't know. What if you guys were in Seattle's position? You've just an 8-8 team. You've just jumped up to the 5th pick in the draft. I mean, what would you be thinking immediately there?
I mean, I think Pryor is a good pick here. I mean, they don't really have anything to lose. They showed that they were like good in their division, and I just don't know if Enderley is that good. Maybe he booms in camp. I kind of wish the game would let you make quarterbacks multi-positional because you could have the real Terrell Pryor. And I don't know what his hands look like in this league or not, but that would be really cool too. So I don't know. I just the Seattle's in a unique position because I'm not really sure what their holes were for that system that he ended up settling into for the season.
Yeah,
what about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too sure if I was Seattle. I honestly, I don't know. I'd probably be looking at quarterback even at pick 5, because if you look at the teams who are above him, Indianapolis will still have Manning. Washington probably are not going to get Andrew Luck. Houston will probably get Andrew Luck. Washington then might deal, I would imagine, if I have had to guess. So Seattle could be sitting in quite a nice position to probably pick up if the number 2 option of quarterback in this draft is good. We've seen that with Kaepernick. If you get the right guy who fits the right system and he drops, brilliant at pick 5. If he solves your offensive needs and solves one of the biggest positions of need, and he's good enough, then why not? I mean, what do you think, Toasty?
Oh, did we lose him?
Maybe. Let me double check. No, I think he's still
I'm
here.
here.
Yeah, I think he's back. Toasty, I was just saying, what
I'm here.
are your thoughts on Seattle and pick 5? I mean, what do you think of that situation? Is it a case of looking at the second best quarterback in this draft, or maybe other positional needs, or?
I think they've plugged their biggest hole with an elite player here, and I don't think they necessarily go quarterback though. I feel like they'll plug one of their different holes.
Yeah, I mean, the obvious one is probably at the line, not linebacker, the cornerback position is probably one. Tight end is also a position they really have no one. So certainly there are other gaps if they really think that Enderley is good enough for another season, or whether they can pick up a quarterback in free agency. There's some big names who are heading to free agency. So absolutely. Okay, so pick number 6. Let's have a look. So where do you guys think this one's going? We know obviously Tampa Bay have dropped a couple now. They've only got a couple more before they hit that 5 pick limit now. You've got the Rams, Denver, Detroit, Cincinnati all sitting there with the highest percentages. Or do you guys see another left wing? I mean, we've had a couple now. Indianapolis, Seattle, Houston all jumping up. What are your odds on for this one?
I'm gonna stick with Tampa Bay. I mean, it just I'm just getting repetitive, but it's got to hit eventually.
Chicago.
Okay. A new name has entered the field in Chicago. I'm actually going to say Miami. I don't know why. I just have a feeling for Miami. Sorry, Cincinnati. I'm afraid I've given up with you now. You're going to be dropping, in my opinion. Now, anyone I say seems to be dropping. So I'm going to go with Miami. I think they're next. So pick number 6 in the 2013 draft is going to be Pittsburgh. So Pittsburgh have also jumped up. A team that we've talked about a couple of times on the pod recently, in terms of they've got a pretty good offense, but it's their defense that has just been atrocious this past season. They lost some big defensive names in the offseason. Probably quite good that they've managed to jump up, Toasty. I guess defense is probably the main need here. What do you think?
I think they will grab a defensive tackle or DB.
Yeah, I mean, there are certainly some good edge players, I think, and tackle players in this draft. Just looking at names, I mean, Cam Johnson is probably the one that sticks out the most in terms of an edge. He might possibly be around there at pick 6 as well, considering that New England were probably hoping they didn't get the number 1 pick. I know, as weird as that sounds, because they're probably hoping they'd get like a top 5 and they can just take Cam Johnson and just move on. Josh, I mean, defensive edge, defensive tackle for Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I see them keeping this pick and going defense. I think they lost a lot of speed on their defense, as I think I said in like our earlier pods, and they'd be well served to get a lot of that back. And I'm pretty sure they have like all of their picks, so they don't really need to trade down. They're a very competitive team with a win now window. So
yeah, okay, cool. Let's move on to pick 7. So obviously pick 7 by default is Tampa Bay. They have fallen the maximum 5 picks. I'm very sorry, Tampa Bay. It happens, but at least you haven't fallen that far this year. That's all I can say. It's only five places. So Tampa Bay, obviously, situation, they need some talent. Pick 7 is going to solve some things for them. Do you guys have any observations on that? I mean, it's a tough situation. They've fallen. What can we say?
Well, I mean, that's them's the breaks. I don't want to be insensitive.
Yeah.
I would be furious. Yeah. I would be furious as well if I was him. Like, maybe not like rage quitting furious, but definitely like I may not post for a few days angry.
Okay. What I think they should do is trade a list of 3 players that. Go ahead, Josh.
No, I was just laughing. You go ahead.
Okay. What I think they should do is create a list of 3 or 4 players that they really want, and then if those 4 players aren't there, they trade down and get as much capital off of the 7th pick. Because that is what I did last year. I had like the defensive tackle, I forget his name, Wilkerson, Smith, Wilson, as the 3 people that I would have gotten that I wanted in the draft. And if Smith wouldn't have been there at the 10th pick, I would have traded it down and gotten as much capital from the pick as possible.
Yeah, I can see it that way too. But as you guys will see, because I as Cleesby keeps prodding me at, because I haven't finished them. When the awards come out, you're gonna the rookie awards, man. Our draft again was like there was talent in almost every round. Like it's not all just first round guys. So maybe just I think some of these teams should take the best player available at their biggest hole, because the depth might extend to the 3rd round.
Yeah, and I certainly agree. And I think one of the things we said at the beginning of this pod, where we were just talking around training, and I'm really waiting for a team to really utilize training really efficiently for some of these draft picks, like almost like a draft and stash. Because I mean, we saw last year that, as you said, both of you said, that there is talent sitting around all different rounds of the draft, really. Just the way the scouting works in draft day sports is just, you can't scout every player. There's 300 players. I mean, you have to focus somehow. So there will be guys who will just be sitting around to take. And I'm waiting, as I said, for someone to really utilize the training and just draft a player, not play him for probably the first 2 seasons, just train him like there's no tomorrow, and then for him just to arrive in year 3, it's like, oh my god, this is a really good starter. So teams like Tampa Bay could certainly do that if they take Toasty's approach and draft down, get some players, maybe give some game time, but really train them heavily to get those rating boosts. Certainly can see that.
I think you just pointed out a really good strategy for some of the contending teams too. Like, if like for me, for example, I have a few. I've been comfortable with my linebacker position, so I extended 2 of my rookie guys. I mean, 2 of my lower level linebackers on really, really long, cheap contracts, in the hopes that they got better. And now that I've seen what Chris has done, I'm going to try to implement that. So I've kind of drafted his, not so much drafted his stash, but found 2 guys in free agency that I could sign to like a ridiculous 7-year tiny contract and try to stash them and see if they become something. And I could see like teams with a plethora of picks like you and Carolina and Denver doing that to success, are the Patriots.
Yeah, I mean it's tough, isn't it? Because one of the challenges we have in the league is we have a hard cap. So you can't just keep picking players up. You've got to put as much salary on the field as you possibly can at the end of the day. So we'll see. So let's go on to pick 8. I don't know. Okay, so the Rams have also fallen. I thought that would happen. So the Rams obviously had a top 3 chance. They have fallen, which probably means, if I'm looking, I think that all the remaining guys who have been knocked out of those positions are going to drop the maximum number of positions now. So I believe the next one will be the Broncos, and then it'll be Detroit. So we've had 4 teams all fall out of the top 5 here. So it's the way it works, unfortunately, sometimes. If your number's not drawn, it's not drawn. But, we've got the Rams in pick 8, Denver in pick 9, and then Detroit sitting in pick 10. So I guess Denver and Detroit probably still happy to have a top 10 pick, I'd imagine. I know Denver were probably busting for an Andrew Luck pickup if that wasn't any more insult to injury for anyone in his division, just going unbeaten this year. You've then got obviously the Rams. The Rams with pick 8 have fallen. What are you guys' observations on those 3 picks there?
Go ahead, Toasty.
I feel like the Rams are gonna, if they do find a GM, the GM's gonna just take best player available. And I feel like 9 and 10, they might be open to trading down and getting just like crap load of capital for the 9 and 10 from a team like myself or another team that doesn't have a first this draft.
Yeah. I don't know that.
Go on, Josh.
No, go ahead, please, because I'm still
I
kind
was
of
going to say,
thinking.
I kind of agree with that. I think the Rams are in an interesting situation because they don't have a GM. So if they do have a GM, who knows what's going to happen? It depends on when they arrive as to whether they've got any scouting or not. Unfortunately, that's the way that one's going to work. I won't talk about my pick. I'll leave that for Josh to talk about. But the Denver Broncos is an interesting one. I think I fully expect them to try and be aggressive to draft up if they can, because I think they'll have their eyes on probably 2 or 3 players. Looking at the way that the Broncos play, I think there's two to three players that he would have really, really wanted in this draft just by name alone. If he can't get those, as you said, Toasty, I can see him dealing out down below into the later end of the first round with that pick. And Josh, what's your observations?
All right, so kind of listening to you guys, I see Pittsburgh and Tampa Bay kind of staying where they are. Like they need one's a contending team that could, an influx of talent is just going to push them over the top, and the other one's a team that needs talent to the point where I wouldn't get tricky with trying to trade down. I would just, take the best player at any position. The Rams, I think will stay because, like a new GM likes to come in and make their mark on a new team. I don't know how you guys feel about that. I think anytime that I've taken over a team, like I don't really ever take the middle path. I kind of just go one of two ways. I either try to remake it in my image, or I watch it and just kind of ride it out for a little while. So Denver, yeah, I can see Denver aggressively trying to trade up because why not? Like if you won 16 games and your biggest hole is you're losing, I think Dawkins and I can't remember their other big defensive player, Bailey. I think Dawkins and Bailey both expire. So, maybe use that pick to move your largest contract for the best player you can get on the small contract so you can bring Bailey and Dawkins back. I don't know. They have a lot of options, but I see them trying to use this pick to somehow mitigate the blow of that because, me personally, I'm looking forward to playing a Denver without those players. And I guess lastly, Detroit, I see you guys trying to be aggressive and moving up too. I think that you guys expected to get a really top pick out of this, and that your other half is going to be very disappointed, and Slack will be exciting to read.
Yeah, I just want to clarify. Let's not call it in my other half. Let's call him the accountant because that's what he is.
Yeah, we might actually offend your other half. So yeah, you're right.
please, let's not go down that route. He's the accountant. He managed to mess up a couple of things. So the accountant is his classification. Yes, he will be very annoyed with this. I'm not too bad. I kind of expected us to drop. I kind of expected us to drop from pick 5. If we weren't going to get pick 5, we were going to drop because of the way that Tampa Bay, the Rams, and Denver had all dropped so far.
Yeah.
It's one of the. I guess the downside of this is if you have teams who are dropping above you, they will automatically almost bump you into the positions above.
Yeah.
That's the downside of doing it this way. The good side is that you don't drop that many. You only drop 5 places. So. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Should we move on to pick 11 and have a look? I don't think there's any more teams who are scheduled to drop now, so we might get some odds ping up now. Unless, I don't know if Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati, actually, yeah, you're right. Cincinnati will probably be the next pick. So they've dropped the maximum of 5.
Good eyes,
yeah, unfortunately. And then it means the Chargers have also dropped the maximum of the 5 picks.
This is working out well.
This is getting interesting. So if we go to pick 13, we now have the odds back because a whole host of teams have obviously dropped because we had a huge amount of upset up the top. So pick 13. It's unlucky for some. I mean, the odds now are obviously a lot shorter. I mean, you've got the Vikings, Chicago, Miami, and Philadelphia and Carolina pretty much occupying the majority of chance of getting this. Where do you guys see this one playing out?
I want Miami to get this pick so Rizzo can actually have a hard schedule for once.
Yeah, I think it'll be Miami.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I hope it's Miami because Chicago and Minnesota are in my division, and I don't really want to see them get too high up in picks. Chicago in particular, because they had a rough season, but they're a really talented team. And Minnesota are GM-less, but they had a pretty good season as well. So let's have a look and see where this one goes. So pick number 13 in the CSFL draft is going to
CSL.
Miami.
Oh, yes. Good. The CSL podcast where we all really, really, really want our teams to win. No, I think that's great for Miami though. They've been steadily chugging away, and man, they are they not good for a few upsets every single season? Like I do not enjoy playing them at all. Game planning for them kind of. I think I played them last season, and their game planning for them was hard because I just don't really know what one thing they're going to do. But if you can look at their schedule, let me see,
Yeah, so I mean they beat the Ravens.
They upset the Ravens. Yeah, like I said, they're good for the Cowboys and the Jaguars in the preseason. I mean, even that one, like it was the preseason, but I mean, they just seems like they're good for a few upsets or scares every single season. Like they almost beat the Eagles too. I'm looking, and the Jets as well. Just a lot of close victories. I mean, close losses.
And so much cap room this offseason as well. Yeah, so Miami are going to be interesting. I mean, I guess we've got to hand it over to Toasty and just, another team in your division, another top 15 pick. The Patriots obviously get number 1, Dolphins obviously number 13 now. What's your observations as an interdivision rival grabs another pick?
It's going to be a tough season next year.
Yeah. I think that's fair to say. It's going to be a tough season next year. I mean, the Dolphins have obviously got a challenge in terms of they're losing quite a bit of talent, but they've got the salary to make up for it in terms of trying to get some of the guys in free agency. So we'll certainly see how they do. So we head on to pick 14. Obviously, we've got now Minnesota, Chicago tying up 46% of that odd. And then everyone else is kind of bumbling around. Where do you guys see this one going? I probably see this one going into our division, and I'd probably say I see the Vikings picking up this pick.
Let me see. So Minnesota, Chicago, Philly, Carolina, Cleveland. He's going Carolina. In that case, I will go Cleveland.
Okay, let's see where this one ends up then. So pick 14 of the draft is going to Philadelphia.
Oh, give Vic some help.
Yeah, so Mr. Vic, who also suffered that wonderful trait issue that is in the game, 7-9 this year. Certainly struggled quite a lot. Had some injury issues as well throughout the season. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to be honest. I'm not too sure on what personnel or players will be available around pick 14 based on name. It's a bit of a guessing game at this point because until we get to scouting. I mean, Eagles are an interesting one. If I quickly throw it open to you guys in a sec, Eagles are an interesting one because it all depends on this man. Hopefully, if we. Depending on timing of the next season and the new draft day sports game, I think he is still going to be an issue just because of the trait tag that he's got now. You can see the drop off quite clearly from last year to this year. if that is the case, the Eagles have a big decision with this pick and with the offseason as to whether they transition away from Mr. Vick and move on to maybe someone else or look at rebuilding. I think that's the question I have in my head for the Eagles.
I think from a competitive balance standpoint that I might if the Philadelphia GM would like to reach out in the same way that Toasty and I have talked often behind the scenes about making your running quarterback run again. I will extend that hand. I may not tell everything I know, but I will point you in the right direction.
Yeah, and I mean Toasty as well. Toasty as well. Go on.
Oh, I was saying, I think it just finally got Vince to where he's like kind of a shell of his old self with the run game.
Yeah, and Toasty obviously has experience as well of having that type of quarterback with Tebow, I guess. How have you managed to find a way to utilize him as well that could possibly, be considered with when you have someone like a Michael Vick as well?
I thought I had it figured out in the beginning of the season, but then he just hit a brick wall and wouldn't run the ball. So it's difficult to get them to run consistently.
Yeah, I would say it's not consistent, but I wouldn't call it inconsistent. It's somewhere in between there to where I've gotten him. Whereas I feel like last year it was definitely consistent. It was about 50 yards a game at the very least.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Philadelphia, if you are watching the episode on live or replay, reach out to these guys. They're happy to help you solve the Michael Vick conundrum. And they might take your pick 14 as compensation. I'm not going to say that's the case, but who knows? Okay, so pick 15. So we obviously will be Minnesota, who have fallen the full 5 picks as well. Unfortunate for them, they were pick 10. They are GM-less now, unfortunately.
That's a shame.
It's a shame. But pick 15, new GM coming in, could put his stamp on it. Let's move straight on to pick 16, which is also going to be the Bears, who have fallen, unfortunately, from pick 11. So the Chicago Bears are an interesting one, in my opinion. They're a team that performed so well last season. This season haven't quite got it together. But there is a lot of talent on this team. They're sitting there kind of probably waiting to sort of explode, I think, again.
Yeah.
What
that's
do
a pretty good
what do
description.
you both think?
You want to take this one first, Toasty?
There's 2 paths that I could see that this team could take. If there's a linebacker there that is solid, I would personally trade Urlacher and get tons of capital from him, because Urlacher is a very strong linebacker with great speed, which I believe is 91 there.
Yeah. Yeah, he's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if
Go ahead.
And if there isn't a linebacker there, I feel like they should just take best player available on their offense, because I feel like their defensive side of the ball is pretty solid.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that. I think that they should either get that man some help or move him, open up some space, and go and help the roster somewhere else.
Yeah, I agree. I can see the Bears moving up in the draft. I think there's some clear gaps that they want to try and address, but I think they've got the depth there. So I think it's a case of them probably trying to aggressively move up to grab an elite player. But we'll certainly see.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. They're definitely a case of find the person to put you over the top.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to pick 17. So pick 17, we do have some odds again, because no one has dropped 5 places, and I think the only team that will be able to drop the 5 places now is obviously Carolina. So they've obviously got a 40% chance. The Browns have got a 30% chance. Then San Francisco and then Seattle, who have got the Kansas City pick. So it'd be a fantastic result, wouldn't it, if Seattle managed to jump up to pick 17 as well for them this year. Can anyone see Carolina not taking this pick at 17?
I could see Carolina doing absolutely anything with this pick. Whatever they feel is the best offer for it, they'll move it. And if they don't get one, then they'll pick. Okay. I just feel like anything is tradable for them.
Yeah. Okay, let's see if they do grab pick 17. So 17 in the next CSFL draft is going to Carolina. Okay, so they haven't dropped. Kyrus, you will be relieved, I know, certainly, because you had an awful attempt last year when you were picking the numbers with the Panthers. Yeah, okay. So as you said, Josh, you can see them pretty much doing anything. Toasty, what do you think that the Panthers are going to do? Can you see them trading, probably drafting? Where do you see that one going?
Well, I know I'm going to be reaching out to him about potentially grabbing that pick, and hopefully he'll trade it to me.
So okay, so first time on the show, he's already reaching out to GMs on different channels. I love it. Why not? Why not? Why not? So, Kyrus, if you are watching, the Buffalo Bills, Toasty is interested in pick number 17. Hit him up. He's ready. He's ready to take that off of you. So let's move on. Let's move on to pick 18. So the Browns obviously have a 50% chance now. We're pretty much down to the last couple. Then San Francisco and then Seattle. I'm not going to ask you guys for names. Let's just try and get through and do an observation on these final three. So San Francisco has jumped up one place. They have grabbed pick 18. Let's have a look at pick 19. So the Browns, are they going to drop the full three, or Seattle going to still hold the 20 pick? So Cleveland has dropped one. They have taken pick 19, which means the final pick in this draft lottery is obviously going to Seattle via Kansas City. So San Francisco 18, Cleveland Browns 19, and Seattle 20. Any observations for those final three picks there?
I think the bottom of the first round is a really nice place to be in the draft if you can't be like top 5. Just have a lot of potential for movement. And that's just kind of just how I feel about all three of those picks in general.
I feel like Cleveland is going to be aggressive and try to trade up because they underperformed a lot this season. So I feel like Cleveland's GM is going to try to be aggressive and get the players that will win for him.
Yeah, I mean yeah, of course. I mean, the Browns GM has said that this season was an interesting one. He's a veteran of this game, and it's made him rethink around how to win in this game with what he's got. Going 8-8 was certainly not his projection this year. He fully expected them to be a Super Bowl contender. It hasn't quite worked out for them. So yeah, I completely agree. Pick 19, the Cleveland Browns anything could happen there. Seattle had a great lottery draft. They're going to be jumping up and down, I think, when they see this. And then the 49ers, I think, jumping up a place is pretty good for them. They've had an overachieving season from probably where they thought they were going to be. Probably would have liked to have been inside that top 10 if they could have, but it didn't quite work out for them that way.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at the 49ers and the Panthers, and we are kind of hashing this out on the chat, but I feel like those two teams are going to be are looking at for most improvement going into next year.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess we finished the draft, the lottery anyway. Some interesting, crazy moves, as we kind of, I guess we kind of should say we expect now with how this works out. I guess the good thing is that we've had teams that have dropped, but they obviously haven't dropped that many. They've only dropped 5 places. Any final parting comments or surprises or things to watch out for from the end of this draft from either of you guys? Perhaps I'll start with Toasty. Anything you want to just say from the 20 picks that have happened?
Stop trading picks to New England.
yeah. That's definitely the obvious statement. Anyone who's watching, New England do not need any more draft picks, especially number 1 picks.
I guess my take would be outside of New England. I think that every team that needed a lottery pick got one. Like, so that was nice for me. I think every team that needed a top 10 pick squeezed in there. Most of the teams that didn't really need them seem to have fallen. So that again, with the exclusion of New England. So, hooray for the little guy. The new draft lottery system worked out really well.
Yeah, and I think I'll just finish off by saying that I am really interested to see what happens around the top 5 of this draft. In comparison to the other two, New England could look to trade. Houston could look to trade. Washington could look to trade. The Colts could look to trade, and Seattle could look to trade. I could see that top 5, the names on that top 5 list completely changing by the time we get to the draft. Just looking at the teams and what's going to be available to them in terms of what teams are going to be trying to give them to move up there, because we've seen quite a few teams drop. So it could be a fascinating one from a trade perspective, as I said at the beginning, and I still stand by that. Toasty, Josh, it's been great to have you both on. Hopefully we'll get you both on another podcast as we come into the future. There certainly will be some as we get towards the conference finals, and obviously the Super Bowl will be live as it always is. Thank you very much both for coming on. I hope you enjoyed the lottery. Neither of you two had an actual interest in it. I'm going to sit in here cursing that I've dropped 5 places, but it's great to have you both on.
Thank you for having me, man. Sorry about your loss. But, I think you and all those teams with all those first round picks are going to be fine. Imagine being going to the second round of the playoffs, worried that you only have a top 10 pick in the draft. First world problems.
Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, great to have you on, Josh. Toasty, it's great to have you on as the first time on the episode. Hopefully we'll have you back on soon.